Hey everyone, Keir the Rugby Strength Coach here. Going to be sharing with you another video today, and today we're going to be talking about an analogy that's going to help you to maximise your performance and get the most out of your program whilst reducing your risk of injuries. Now this particular analogy is stolen from a Canadian track and field coach by the name of Charlie Francis, who by most people's account is probably the best mind that's ever existed on speed training, and he's definitely one of my biggest influences on my career as a coach. Now in this analogy, Charlie likens training stress to a glass. We know that a glass, we can fill it with liquid, and as we fill up the glass, there's going to be less and less room to take more liquid. And we also know that if we fill it up to the very brim, and then we add more liquid, we're going to create a massive mess. So our ability to train and tolerate the physical stress of training is just like that glass. It's limited, and we know that because we can't train all day, every day. If we tried to do that, we'd start to see our performance start to stagnate, and we'd start to accumulate injuries and illness, which obviously is going to be a massive impediment to performance. But in reality, to maximise our performance and minimise our injuries, we actually need to go a level deeper and understand the impact of all stresses on our body. And this is because it's not just training stress which affects us physically. Whether a stressor is physical or non-physical, all the stress that we experience in our lives has physical effects on the body and taps into our limited resources to tolerate stress, so our cup, if you will. So if you think about other stressful events in your life, for example, arguing with your wife or girlfriend, or being stuck in traffic, or if you've ever been unlucky enough to get mugged, you'll recognize that those stressful events elicit the same physiological environment in your body as a training session. So your heart rate will rise, your blood pressure will go up, you'll start to breathe faster and more deeply, and your body's going to start to mobilize adrenaline and more energy to a fight or flight reaction. So you might be wondering, what's the importance of this to the training process and trying to maximize your performance on the rugby field? And the most obvious point to take from this is that if we have a limited capacity to tolerate stress in all forms, it's in our interest to try and minimize forms of stress which aren't training, because if we max out our ability to tolerate stress with non-training stresses, by the time we have our opportunity to train, we've got very little of our reserves left to train with. That means that we're going to be able to train less, we're going to deliver a smaller stimulus to the body, we're going to adapt less, and our performance is going to suffer. So we have to make an effort to minimize non-training stresses in our lives. That means get rid of your wife or girlfriend, because as somebody from the States recently told me, no wife, no girlfriend, no problem. It means avoid stressful situations. And it means live a good life in terms of your nutrition, your hydration, your sleep, and also your lifestyle. So don't be at the club 5 nights a week trying to chase women. If you can do that, you're going to maximize your opportunity to fill your cup with training stress and deliver an optimal stimulus for optimal adaptation and performance. Secondly, unfortunately we live in the real world, and we know that it's almost impossible to eliminate non-training forms of stress. Sometimes we're going to get stuck in traffic, sometimes we're going to argue with our girlfriend, sometimes we're going to have money troubles, we're not going to be able to sleep, stuff like that. So that means that all throughout our life, non-training stress is always fluctuating, it's always going up and down. So in our cup, that level of water is always going up and down, leaving more or less room available for training stress. Now that means, as our stress goes up and down, we're going to have to fluctuate the volume and intensity of our training load to make sure that we actually max out our cup but don't go any further and start to spill over into injury, illness, and stagnant performance. Likewise, we don't want to underfill our cup when non-training stress is low, and we actually have a higher capacity to tolerate more intensity and more volume in our training activities. So if you want to maximize your performance in the gym and on the field, you need to understand that stress is a dynamic process, and having the same program from day to day with the same intensity and the same volume is not actually the ideal way to prepare for maximum performance. Yes, it's true that you need to have a structured program, but you also need to have contingencies within that program of higher or lower stress days to accommodate for when your cup is more full or less full, depending on what's going on elsewhere in your life. So if you can understand that the training process is just one small piece of all the stresses that we experience, and they all have an impact on the body that has to be accounted for, you're hopefully going to be able to maximize your performance on the field and reduce your risk of injuries. As ever, if you like this video, please give it a like and a subscribe. And for more information, you can visit www.rugbystrengthcoach.com/blog.